So good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. This is Abby Borden from Lexer. Super excited to have you here today and our speaker for the day. We are going to go ahead and jump in, and at any point in time, just some rules of the road, if you will. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We will be able to grab those or the Q&A. So we'll take a look, and we have a good section for that towards the end of the presentation today. We've got probably about 25 minutes of content that we'll walk you through with our speaker today, which is Carlos Di Spinola. He is our Director of Strategy here at Lexer, and he works with brands like Supergoop, Uncharted Supply, Marquee, and Nexus brands, really helping them understand a lot of what's going on in their customer data and creating great experiences for their customers. So he is going to jump in and talk through our 9 campaigns and tactics to make the most of this holiday season. With that, Carlos, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Abby. And thanks to everybody for joining. I know that time is scarce these days, and I hope you get some good value out of what we're going to talk through today. Just a quick intro for some of you who I'm guessing a lot of you know who Lexer are, but for those of you who don't, we're a marketing technology company, and we help brands and retailers drive incremental sales through improved customer experiences. At our core, we use customer data as the core that can drive these personalizations and these deep customer experiences. And we do it for a bunch of really awesome brands that we're really proud of, who we work with and the work they do. So today we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Lexer, if at all. Just a quick introduction there. What we're going to talk about is holidays, right? And the holiday season, right? Now, as we all know, the holiday season is generally a pretty big deal, right? It's for some of us, it's the lion's share of our revenue on any given year, right? But this year it's projected to be bigger. This year we're coming out of sort of the throes of a pandemic, and we know that sort of forecasts have been projecting it to go sort of revenues and sales to go north of $1 trillion. I've seen some forecasts that are saying sort of an increase in 3% versus last year, some going up as high as 8 or 9%. So it's going to be a huge deal for us. E-com is projected to sort of contribute around sort of 20% to that, and that's a big shift, right? As most of us have seen through the pandemic, we've seen this big shift, this 10x shift from retail, on-premise sort of retail on store into an online environment, and we see that projecting into this holiday season. But it's a holiday season that we can't rest on our laurels, right? Because there's still a few sort of remnants that we need to be mindful of as we go into this holiday season. The first and foremost one is just the general negative financial effects that COVID is still sort of bringing onto us, right? We've still got a lot of individuals, a lot of people that are still trying to sort of relinquish that debt. They're a bit more sort of mindful of how they spend their dollars sort of going forward. So we know that there's a different mindset with spending that's been taken into 2021. But even the ones that are looking to spend, we have seen signs that that spending is going to be sort of directed into those services and those goods that were relatively scarce during the pandemic. If you work in travel or if you work in travel-related services, it might be a good year for you. So we also need to be mindful that just because people might be spending more, and we expect a higher level of revenue coming into the season, it might not be going to those fashion accessories or those traditional sort of gifting things that we're looking at year in and year out. But then most importantly, and I'll stake my reputation, as it will, that most of you would have experienced this in the last sort of few months and or year or two, is just we're still in the throes of this sort of deep marketing volatility, right? Almost all of you would have seen your CPMs go up, your conversion rates go down, having negative effects on your customer acquisition costs. And then when you start bundling that in with things like sort of how Facebook is changing sort of their changes on attribution, how Apple is sort of changing the way sort of that we're targeting. There's a lot of volatility in the marketing space, right? So we just need to be mindful of that. And we know that things won't necessarily be easy going in. But at Lexer, we are a sort of glass half full kind of crowd. So we see that there's still a lot of potential that we can sort of leverage. And so we're going to talk today about tactics and approaches that you can, like we should start doing now, right? Sooner rather than later, that can help you sort of drive deeper commercial value sort of this, this holiday season amidst this relative uncertainty, right? And that uncertainty could be positive with increased revenues, but also we don't really know where it's going. So what we're going to talk you through are sort of 9 approaches that you can implement, and you can implement pretty quickly, pretty soon. And here's the thing is, this isn't an exhaustive list. There's a plethora of ways that you can sort of engage within the holiday season. We're going to talk about 9 quick wins, 9 sort of macro themes. But the thing I want you to sort of keep in your mind as we go through this process is, irrespective of which tactics you use, if you use any of these 9 or any other of your other tactics, is always try have whatever you do supported by these 3 these 3 instances, right? Always think about it in the context of insight, timing, and personalization, whichever approach you do. So for insights, before you go forward and do anything, make sure whatever you're looking to do is hedged in some actual consumer behavior or some insight that you know is going to drive commercial value going forward, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is timing, right? And timing, we're talking about this in a multifaceted sense, right? So timing could be, in this instance, it's contextual, it's topical, right? So timing, it's seasonal, be it sort of from the holidays, so from your Cyber Mondays all the way through to your holidays at the end of December. But it's also about thinking about timing in the context of customer recency and customer frequency, and sort of the timing in the context of which you engage with them. But then ultimately it's about personalization, right? Because that's what we're trying to drive here, right? We're trying to use the signals that we can get through data and through our marketing initiatives to drive personalization with our communications, because we know that personalization drives deeper engagement, drives deeper purchase. We get more results in revenue at the back end of that. So without further ado, let's start with the first of the 9, and we're going to start with the straightforward one, right? When it comes to holiday season, sort of gifting, right? Gifting is going to happen. How do we get ahead of gifting? And for us, it's pretty straightforward, right? How you engage with gifters, or how you drive sort of more gifting sales, is really about looking at smart ways of identifying gifter segments or cohorts in your customer set, right? Because, and this is one of those things I constantly bang on about, and I'm going to do it again multiple times in the session, is acquisition is important. Getting more customers is important. But we know that as marketers, it's actually cheaper for us to get $1 out of an existing customer than to acquire a new customer. So we need to be thinking about things like lifetime value, sort of retention of customers, how we drive growth within customers. And identifying these gifting cohorts within our customer base enables us to drive that additional lifetime value or that additional purchase, right? So there's different ways of doing it. Here is just for example, but one of the good and easy ways to start thinking about that of gifting segmentation is really on purchase behavior, right? Looking at what your customers buy, right? So if you're one of those lucky customers, and this is going to change depending on what type of industry sector, what business you are, but you might have gifting packs, right? So if you work, we've got customers that work in the beauty space. You can bundle up a beauty pack. You can label it as a gift, and you can look at the customers that buy those and understand who they are. You can look at it based on the types of purchases that they make, and so you can drive some inference around the types of products that individuals buy. If you're predominantly a female product or brand, but you've got males buying female products, or vice versa, females buying male products, there's some inference that they could be gifting for significant others. So there's different ways where you can look at using inferred purchases in order, past purchases, to drive inference in your segmentation. One of the things we don't do a lot, and I feel like we should do a lot more, is find ways of getting sort of hand raises, these self-directed signals, right? And here we're talking about surveys, right? Sometimes you can, after a purchase or sort of looking at customers that have previously purchased, send a survey. It's like, I'm glad you like your product. Who did you buy it for? Was it for you? Was it for somebody else? And also find different ways of driving insight and questions that can drive sort of that deeper personalization, right? You can also look at it in the context of purchase patterns, right? So if you've got a subset of customers that every December buy socks and ties on repeat every year, and that's me sort of playing to the stereotype, there's a likelihood that they're gifting, and they sort of gifting coming close to Christmas season. That's an interesting way of doing it. Or even, sort of looking at other ways, gift cards, right? So customers buy gift cards around gifting season. Or if you use promo codes, you've got promo codes you can lean on, and you can identify previous promo code use. So in essence, it's about finding different signals in order to drive segmentation of your gifters, and then hit them with personalized communications around sort of holiday season. A pretty straightforward tactic, but ones that we know drive commercial value, right? Now, gifting is one side of the holiday coin. That when you're talking to individuals, you've now got them captivated, you've got their eyeballs, they're looking to spend money. Sometimes they're looking to spend money on other individuals, but there's nothing to say that they're not looking to spend money on themselves too. So we've got this other sort of treat yourself campaigns, right? And the idea really here is about sort of cross-sell and upsell. Right? Yes, you can use treat yourself campaigns as a communications message in order to drive customer acquisition, but going back to, it's cheaper to get $1 out of an existing customer than it is to acquire a new customer. Find ways you can drive this cross-sell and upsell with your existing customer set, right? So if you know that there's sort of individuals that you haven't been able to segment as being gift buyers, hit them with treat yourself messages. And those treat yourself messages can be personalized based on their lifestyle segmentation, or based on their product purchase, right? Or even then, like for example, in Lexer, we've got predictive attributes with recommended product recommendations. Leverage those, right? So if you've got the ability to use predictive analytics to personalize product recommendations, recommend those. But then also, we do know there are gift buyers that might in that process want to purchase for themselves, right? So if you've got the ability to personalize on-site experiences as those gift buyers are purchasing for themselves, find a way of tailoring that on-site experience that sort of throws in some, get something for yourself in that process. If you can't do that post-purchase, right, you kind of know that your gift buyers have just bought a gift, hit them up with a campaign a few days later with an email saying, you know what, why don't you gift yourself? So there's different ways of using customer data in order to drive this treat yourself, cross-sell and upsell, right? So that's the second tactic. The third, as I mentioned earlier, this is generally a really, really, really good time of the year for us to acquire new customers, right? But it's also a very expensive time of year to acquire new customers because, again, it's holiday season. Everybody's trying to acquire customers, and paid media in digital is a marketplace, right? So how can we be more efficient and smarter in the way that we acquire new customers? Now, this is some thinking where we've got around sort of leveraging your hero product in order to drive better efficacy in your campaigning. The thinking here is, it could either be you've got prospects within your database that haven't made a purchase yet, so they're identifiable, but they haven't made a purchase. But this can just as well be leveraged with new customer acquisition, right? And the thinking here is looking at your customer data, right? You look at what types of products, they can be individual products, they can be product categories, that on first purchase, on acquisition, drive the highest volume of customers, the most customers that buy it, that also drive the highest value, right? So over time, customers who bought this product go on to be much more higher in value than customers who bought other product. We segment that based into these quadrants, right? Based on value and volume. And what you really want is you want to target your customers for acquisition with these hero products, your top right quadrant, right? Because those are the ones that you're likely over the course of their lifetime to generate more value out of them, and you're likely to get more customers out of those, right? And so you can leverage these hero products in order to drive these customer acquisitions, right? But there's also sort of thinking about it again contextually in the holiday season, because that's also relevant throughout the year. But even when you take it into sort of holiday season, find tactics where you can start leveraging things like bundling, right? So even though you do your hero product analysis, also do basket analysis that understands what products are bought together. And through that way, you can actually wrap a holiday message with an incentive that drives up an average order value. So in this example, for example, you know that a cocktail shaker and a cocktail glass, if they tend to be bundled together, put that as your communication, which is if you buy both of these, which are our holiday best sellers, you get 20% off. Right. So now all of a sudden you're starting to find ways through customer data that generates insights, that's timely, that drives personalization around communications. Right. So there's that thinking around that new customer acquisition and rewards. Now we go into sort of discount segmentation, right? Just leading on to what we were just previously talking about. Now, discounts is, it's a very useful tactic, but it also has its pitfalls, right? And which is this, is that if you start discounting too heavily as a business or as a brand, it's very quickly a race to the bottom, right? So you want to be able to leverage your discounts in meaningful ways that doesn't impact your business adversely, right? And thinking here is with all these types of tactics is, thinking about it strategically, sometimes it's also about what not to do than it is what to do, right? So when you look at sort of discount activity around around holiday season, one of the first things you want to keep in mind, one of the first things you want to do is you want to protect your core buyers, your full price buyers, right? Because if they're going to buy with you full price, irrespective of without any consideration of discounts, maintain that, right? Because that's the customer you want buying full price, right? You don't want to start diluting that with discounts. And they used to be a full price buyer, but you've offered them a discount, and now they're just going to keep waiting for discounts, right? So you want to take your full price buyers, you want to suppress them out of your discounting communication, right? And then you've got your discount buyers, right? Which a lot of times for a lot of our businesses, it's a huge cohort. You can also get really smart in the way that you do your discounting with those buyers, right? Why give somebody a 30% discount when you've got the data that supports that they're likely to convert on a 10% discount, for example, right? So look at how you, even within your discount buyers, how you segment your discount buyers and how you communicate differently and efficiently to those customers. Now, again, discounting and rewards, it doesn't have to be just a money off incentive. It could also be sort of free shipping or free express shipping because you're getting closer to the end of season. You might even have a loyalty program, right, where you want to leverage either sort of acquire new customers into that loyalty program or leverage your loyalty points in order to drive this discounting sort of mindset mentality. So not only do you want to suppress your full price buyers, you want to get smarter with the insight, the timeliness, and personalization around your discount buyers, right? So that's number 4. Number 5, and also a pretty obvious one, but this is a quick one, is retargeting last year's buyers, right? The great thing about having customer data is that you can actually look at what that order frequency looks like. And not only order frequency, you can also look at it deeper in the context of what they've purchased, who they are. But ultimately, what you really want to do is you want to look at those spikes, right? In the hope that there are spikes at sort of the holiday time of the year. Customers who purchase around those holiday seasons are likely to purchase again the following year. So look at your historic spikes and see what you can do with those, right? And you can ideally drive additional revenue. Now, there is an argument that says, okay, fine, if they spike just once a year, then you just constrain your communications to those individuals just at one time a year. But you also don't want to be that brand, right? Which you don't speak to your customers throughout the year. As soon as the holiday season comes around, you send them a message, you go, hey, haven't seen you in ages. Holiday's coming up. Here's a 15% discount on us, right? It feels disingenuous. It feels like you're just trying to sort of get a sale out of them, which is true, but it doesn't need to be like that, right? So an idea is also a case of, even though they tend to only purchase at specific times of the year, holiday being this example. Try find ways at post-holiday or between those purchases to keep them engaged, right? Be that content marketing, be that just sort of brand awareness and sort of keep them top of mind. It might even just be sort of trying to get the cross-sell and upsell throughout the course of the year at just a similar level, right? But you want to sort of create some engagement between those tent poles, right? And then you got sort of number 6, campaigns for opted out customers, right? I just wanted to spend some time talking about the premise of the concept about opted out customers, because there are some myths that need to be debunked. The first of which is yes, right? You do get opted out customers, that go through the process, but there's generally this thinking, and I've seen this sort of time and time again with a lot of sort of the customers that I've worked with, is that once you've spent money acquiring a customer, you tend to then do a bat and pass that, after that, it moves from paid into owned channels, right? So once they become a customer, they're automatically only engaged with in email. But the reality is that just because they've purchased with you before and just because you've got their email address, it doesn't mean that they are addressable to you on email, right? So the thinking here goes is that, okay, yes, we need to separate the opted out versus the opted in customers. If they're opted out, find ways of engaging them in other channels that they're opted out. But we need to think deeper than just opted out, right? We need to think deeper in the context of addressability. Just because they're opted in, we still need to think about, do they open up emails, right? Do they click through? Do they actually engage with our campaigns? Because even though they're opted in, if they're not engaging in our campaigns, they're as good as opted out, right? So they're not addressable. And for some of our customers, it's not unheard of to see 50, 60, 70, 80% of their customer base not addressable on email. So we need to figure out different ways of engaging with them. The easiest way, sort of the straightforward way of doing it, is those customers, you target them on social, right? And going back to my ongoing thought, even though you've acquired them as a customer and you don't want to spend more to get an additional sale out of them, that money you spend trying to get an additional sale out of them will still be cheaper than getting a new customer, right? They really know who you are. They're more predisposed to your messaging, your communication. So it is a sort of more efficient way of engaging with those customers. And again, it's about lifetime value. Once you get a second or a third purchase of them, they're probably more likely to engage with you. They're more likely to spend time on your website. So they are more valuable to you over time. So find ways of targeting non-addressable customers in paid social. But also, don't waste the opportunity. Right? You're now connecting with them again. Use that opportunity to find ways of driving re-opt-in, right? And sometimes it might not even be trying to drive opt-in on email, right? It might be finding ways of driving opt-in in other channels. In this example, for example, in this example we got here, we're trying to drive opt-in through SMS, right? So there are ways that you can engage. You can get that sale, but then also not only do you get that sale, you get that re-opt-in, which is through SMS, and you make them addressable in a different channel. And now you can sort of generate different ways of communicating with them over time, sort of post season. And that gets us into sort of post-holiday upsells and cross-sells, right? And by post-holiday, we also need to remember that if you go from Black Friday all the way to the new year, that holiday season is a pretty big, broad season, right? There's multiple weeks in that play. So when we say post-holiday, it's not just about going, okay, from January onwards, even though it should be and it is, but it's also going, how do you change the way that you engage on your Black Fridays, your Cyber Mondays, through to more of your sort of family holidays going towards the end of the year, right? And so this is where we look at how we drive not only just first purchase, but your conversion to second purchase, right, from post sale. So this is working on the assumption that at some point in time over the last few weeks within this holiday season, the customer has made at least one purchase, right, and usually sort of one purchase. And what we want to look at is which customers that purchase the specific product in that first purchase, those product categories, what are they like? Which other product categories are they likely to drive a second purchase? So in this example, we know that customers who first buy knits have got a higher probability of converting to a second order than, say, at the bottom, customers who buy fragrances and leather jackets, right? So we know that customers who buy knits are likely. So now all of a sudden you've got to target your knits, your casual jackets. You've got a target of customers that you know if you want to focus your communications for a first to second time buyer conversion, those are your primary categories that you want to target. But then you go, okay, well, if you want to convert them to a second purchase, what product category are they likely to purchase second, right? We've found time and time again, especially in fashion and apparel, that what you buy in your first product category of purchase tends to be what you buy in your second. I'm a prime example of that, right? So I'm very particular about my jeans. When I buy a pair of jeans that I like the fit, I like the cut, I tend to buy a second pair in a different color or multiple pairs because I use jeans a lot, right? And so that kind of mentality does seem to persist. So we kind of know in this example, knits, customers who first bought knits, send them a piece of communications post-sale, their first purchase, which goes, I hope you really enjoyed your knit. Have you seen the rest of our knit range, right? And see if that converts them to a second purchase. Data shows that it's likely to convert, right? And even if that doesn't convert, you can see through the data here that your sports shirts, sweaters, and jeans have also got good probability for driving a second purchase. So if they don't engage in the knits communications, send them another communications going, hey, have you seen our sports shirts? Have you seen our sweaters? Have you seen our jeans? Right? And you can start looking at ways of converting that first to second purchase. And now it's not just about the products and categories that you can cross purchase on, right? It's also about looking at the time frame that you need to engage with these individuals, right? So for knits, for example, if you know that they are likely to purchase, make their second purchase within 90 days of the first purchase, you need to then send customers who buy knits another communication about knits within 19 days, right? So that way you kind of know you've got the data signals that support what that upsell and cross-sell can be. So the idea here is now that you've acquired all these customers during the holiday season, you can find ways of letting your marketing tech stack drive automations, right? So you kind of know what those categories are, you know what those time sequences are, you know what those cross-sell are. Create those segments, and then you can do those set and forget automations that can drive post-holiday sales. Now, we're a technology company, and so we're a big fan of those automations, especially for a lot of you guys out there who are very time poor. You're running very lean teams. So we do see a lot of value in these automations and these set and forget. But there's a flip side to that coin, right? Which is you also don't want it to become so set and forget that those automations drive out that topicality or that sort of contextual. So for example, we've got one of our customers here, Sierra Cycling. We know that, for example, mountain bikes, or just bikes in general, if that's your first purchase, a second purchase tends to be hydration product, right? Water bottles, Camelbacks, whatever the case may be. So once you've bought a mountain bike, it's a type of thing where you go, oh, I hope you really enjoyed your mountain bike. Now that you've got it, don't forget that, we're heading into spring and summer. Hydration is very important. Stay hydrated. Here are our hydration products, right? Now that's very topical and very relevant, and there might be different ways of doing it. Sometimes it might not be with certain brands and products, and sometimes it might be, but don't forget to lose so to keep that in mind as you go through that process. Right. Now, our penultimate one, talking number 8, post-purchase surveys, especially going into a time where third-party data is becoming a lot more difficult, tracking and behavior tracking of third-party. We're leaning a lot more on our first-party data. We're leaning a lot more in this context, our zero-party data. And sort of these surveys and the zero-party data is just as relevant in the holiday season as it would be throughout the year. And the idea here is sort of how do you utilize surveys in order to drive additional LTV and additional data points? So it might even just be like, you bought a product, let us, you got your post-purchase, let us know how it goes. Who did you buy it for? What are you more likely to buy? Why did you buy it? Was it you? So you can ask a bunch of different questions that you can do as follow-up sort of post-purchase surveys. But we've also found a lot of success in post-purchase surveys in driving revenue and sales, right? Because it's also a simple tactic where you go, thank you so much for making that purchase. We'd really love to hear more about that purchase. Please fill out the survey, and as a thank you, we'll give you 10% or 15% off your next purchase, right? So now what you've done is you've created a piece of communications that not only gives you an additional data point, which we know is invaluable, especially sort of in CRM and in marketing personalization. What you've also done is you've now given another sort of lever to drive another purchase, right? So you're giving them a discount, and because they got that discount, loss aversion, they're more likely to use it than not, right? So we know that a lot of times there's a lot of people that don't engage in surveys, and they don't, but those that do are valuable to us. They engage more, they spend more, and if you drive some incentivization through that process, we can find ways of driving additional commercial value. Right, so that's number 8. Our last one, ironically, also sort of last chance scarcity, is again, just being mindful of the context of the holiday season. A lot is happening, and we also know sort of behaviorally, people either tend to purchase really late because they're too busy doing other things, and even worse so, you can go into a store and buy stuff, but now most of it's been done online or on commerce, and sort of delivery schedules come into play, and we know what havoc that can wreak. But we also know sort of data is starting to show forecasting that customers are looking to actually purchase earlier this year because they want to take advantage of discounts. They want to take advantage of some of the benefits of going in early, because they don't want to either get to the end and there's no products, there's they're more expensive than they should be because it's leading up to Christmas, or they won't be able to deliver. So there's 2 things to keep in mind: is sort of get in there early to sort of play on that scarcity, but then also be mindful of those customers and leverage that that perception of scarcity in order to drive holiday value, right? So one of the places to start is even sort of delivery, right? A lot of our businesses' fulfillment times depend on geographic regions, right? Sort of in our reach, we can segment our customers based on geography, and we can start driving personalized communications within those geographies, right? Thank you for being one of our preferred customers in Alaska. Just so you know, our fulfillment, our delivery times in Alaska will be, sort of our cutoff days are a lot sooner than the rest of the country. So don't forget, get your purchase in now before Christmas, right? So you can start leveraging the geographic nature of those customers. You can sort of segment that based on, all the other things we talk about here at Lexer, your customer value, the products that they purchase. So you can put those additional levers into it. And you can also sort of set those countdown, those countdown messaging. And also, let's not forget that just because scarcity sort of ends doesn't mean that your communications should end, right? We know that customers that haven't made a purchase in the last sort of 2-3 weeks or a month, we can send them a piece of communication. Go, look, we know that you've missed, that you might have missed shipping deadline. Here are some digitally fulfilled products that you can still purchase within the last sort of 48 hours before Christmas, be it a gift card or be it something else. So that's just sort of some thinking that drives that scarcity message, and that scarcity message could be around sort of products running out or whatever the case may be. So also just keep sort of scarcity message top of mind. So I've been speaking a lot. I've probably been speaking too fast, especially with my dodgy accent. But in summary, sort of 9 campaigns that sort of aren't exhaustive. But the one thing I do want to sort of hope you take away from the session is, irrespective of what you do, which campaigns you land up leveraging, these or other campaigns, always remember the 3 core principles and tenets about engaging with these. And the first of which is start with insight. The second is think about it in the context of time. And third, it's about driving personalization in your marketing communications, and make sure that you can drive those home to drive more efficiency and activation this holiday season. And there you go.
That's awesome. Thanks, Carlos. That was so helpful. I hope our attendees took similar value away from that perspective. So we're going to jump into questions at this point, and we're going to start with a great one that just came in. Super excited about that. So Carlos, do you think retailers will offer fewer discounts or promotions for the holidays because of supply chain inventory issues?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, look, there's likely to, right? It depends on what type of industry you're working in, right? But ultimately, this is going to be my sort of running theme for everything, right? Is if you are a retailer you've got some level of your inventory positioning, right? And so leading into your season, it's not just about discounts and offering less discounts. It's about sort of putting focus on what you do have available or not, right? So understanding your inventory positioning and driving personalized communications around that, right? So if you've got a high level of positioning within a certain product category, you push that with customers you know are likely to purchase. Customers that aren't likely to purchase, or they're purchasing in inventory positions that you don't have good stock on, then yes, you limit your media spend around that. You also don't put your incentives around that, and you can actually find ways of just being really smart about how you leverage your marketing communications, your spend, your customer data in order to navigate those delays.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great call. Next question. So what is a key mistake that you've seen companies make when building out their holiday campaigns?
Oh, beg your pardon, could you repeat that for me?
Yeah. What is a key mistake that you've seen companies make when building out their holiday campaigns?
Okay. So I think there's about two things really. The first of which is we tend to leave it too late, right? So not only, we think that we've got enough time. I think you can never start too soon, right? And that doesn't mean just start pumping your media and getting your discounting out there soon. But it's about understanding when is the best time to go and planning accordingly. So that's sort of an overarching one. But then the most important one is I don't think that that customers tend to leverage that first sort of pillar, insight, enough. Right, we tend to sort of go into holidays. We just sort of shotgun, sort of blast and pray. We don't get smart, targeted, and segmented in the way that we go to market, because we just assume that everybody's in the mindset. Everybody's expecting tons of communication, and we tend to forget that there's a lot of communication out there. There's a lot of a lot of brands trying to get the same eyeballs. It's expensive. And so what we don't do is we don't leverage insights, and we don't drive that personalization. So start early with your insights, leverage those insights and finding smart places to target and win, and then go to market with those, rather than waiting until it's too late, creating a sort of a content or a marketing calendar that's just very blunt and going to everybody, and treating every customer and every holiday opportunity as the same.
That's great. Yeah, I think continuing to weave personalization throughout is just going to be key, and thinking about the moments that we can create with our customers in holiday is going to pay off in the long run post-holiday too, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to engage. And we talk a lot about the power of the second sale and what that looks like too, as you have an influx of new customers coming in. So I think that's great advice for the group. Speaking of advice.
And Abby, so just to build on that, because you just reminded me of a really good point, is we also tend to think of leading up to sort of the holiday season as now. Right. But we tend to forget that a lot of the ingredients that set us up for success need to be in place in order to do that. And, if you speak to a cardiologist, you'll get a heart-related sort of diagnosis. Speaking to a marketing technologist here, we tend to start thinking about the marketing technology we need too late. Right. So the tech stack that enables you to drive that insight, that drive that personalization, that can plug into your CRM, that can look at the way you can sort of do multi-channel marketing. It's not a quick implementation, right? So if you want to be able to execute through that kind of thinking, you need to start thinking about how you set yourself up technologically months in advance, so that you then have the processes, the technology, the skill sets all in place in order to then execute going into Christmas or holiday season, forgive me.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And on the flip side of that, I know that there are things that can still happen. I'm looking at the date on my computer right now. It is October 20th. Right. So for a lot of peak, that is, a month away. I know that it's not too late, because we work with a lot of brands who are smaller, with smaller teams, certainly would consider themselves scrappy in terms of their resourcing. Carlos, what type of advice would you give to some smaller, maybe D2C brands going into this holiday season that have a small team or budget, and maybe feel like they're coming a little late to the game? Like, is it really too late, or are there things that can happen, right now to still be effective?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, it's never too late, right? And sometimes it might feel daunting, especially when you've got a lean team and you've got sort of lean budgets. But as a strategist, all that tells me is we just need to get, work smart, not hard, right? Which is, if you've got a small team, if you've got a small budget, if timing might not be on your side, pick your battles, right? Find the smart areas to engage in and lean into it, right? Get your quick wins, get your good ones, get your valuable wins, right? And so what you're doing is start out separating the noise out of all your activity, focus on those key areas that you know you're going to win. And again, those key areas are based on insights, are based on time, are based on personalization. Once you find those battlegrounds, then you focus on those to the exclusions of all others. And I think that that's one of the primary things you need to think about is, just because we're constrained, it doesn't mean that we're limited. Right. And so we need to think about where we can do it. And we just need to lean in. So and that to me is just sort of more a sort of an optimistic stretch. Is there's always something you can do, and there's always something you can do smarter. And the more you invest in the front end of a process, the easier the back end of that process becomes, right? So all of a sudden, if you invested in the background, you know that you want to target, you don't have to create 100 different pieces of creative. You only need to create 5. You don't need to sort of go out to everybody, which is inefficient and expensive. You go out to a small set of customers. So figure out how you can sort of get those battlegrounds and how you can win within those battlegrounds.
That's, I feel like just because you are constrained does not mean you are limited is going to just be lingering in my head now for quite some time. So it's a great reminder from that perspective. At this point, I want to be really mindful of time, and we are going to wrap up. If you have any questions that didn't get answered throughout this session, you can find both Carlos and I on LinkedIn, or feel free to send us a note at Lexer. And with that, just if you're interested in learning anything more about Lexer and how we help our clients navigate all these campaigns and power those insights and really connect them with their customers, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to connect. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.